It was a tremendous experience also today to meet with a lot of the students in some of the classes at the Park Center. For me, it's both a sad and an inspiring thing to see so many bright, idealistic young people who want to go into the business of journalism. It's inspiring because, you know, you all seem so committed to wanting to tell the truth and tell important stories. And it's sad because I know you're about to enter a business that is sometimes only tangentially about telling the truth. But the only smart thing I did in my college years was study abroad. I went to Russia and studied in St. Petersburg. Actually, it was still Leningrad back then. And eventually, even though my degree is from Bard, I actually finished my credits in Russia. And I realized that upon graduation that I had absolutely no skills, that I was almost completely unemployable. But that the one thing I did know was I spoke a little Russian, and I thought it would be easier for me to get work in Russia than in the United States. So I elected to stay. I was still trying to be a writer, but that career choice lasted about, I don't know, 6 weeks until my money ran out. And I realized that I had to get a real job. And because I didn't have any other skills, and journalism is sort of my family business. My father's a reporter, a television reporter. My stepmother was a TV reporter. My godparents were reporters. Almost everybody I knew growing up, unfortunately for me, was a reporter. So that was really all I knew how to do. So almost by accident, I kind of ended up in the journalism business. And I ended up with a job at the Moscow Times, which was sort of a straight news daily in the mold of a typical American newspaper. And again, for lack of a better plan, I kind of started off down this road toward a career in what we would call straight news journalism. I got a call from a friend of mine back in Moscow, and he wanted me to help found a newspaper called The Exile. And this was going to be modeled after the old Spy magazine. I don't know, does anybody here remember that magazine? It was sort of Spy magazine was sort of a creation of a bunch of guys who were veterans of the news magazine business, like Time and Newsweek, and they wanted to make a sort of anti-magazine. The entire thing was a spoof of what magazines were. And The Exile, what we decided was going to be a spoof of newspapers. So everything that the Moscow Times did, we were going to do exactly the opposite, basically. Everything from the design to the use of language to the editorials, everything. It was sort of an anarchist take on publishing. And again, there were no deep, profound ideological ideas here. This was purely a sophomoric, I don't work in newspapers anymore, so I'm going to do everything backwards kind of approach to the job. But we decided that whatever rules there were in the newspaper business, we were going to break them whether they were good rules or not. Like, for instance, rule number 1 in publishing is that your readers have to be able to understand the publication. And we broke that one by putting out an entire issue in French. Without any warning whatsoever, which led to the breaking of the second rule, which is don't piss off your advertisers for any reason. You know, we had a lot of people coming to us saying, you know, nobody could understand the ad. So we lost thousands and thousands of dollars on that one. Another rule that they have in journalism typically is that whether publications have something to say or not, they put something on the front page. Whether they have a story or not that's interesting, they say they have something interesting to say. Whereas when we didn't have anything to say, we just put nothing on the cover. No headline, nothing. Basically, we spent the last 2 weeks getting stoned and sorry. Tune in next week. You know, another typical rule was that you wanted your readers to recognize the publication. That's why style is consistent. That's why you have the same design from week to week. But we threw that rule out the window too. We changed the title of the publication sometimes. Sometimes I'd be walking down the street, and I was in Russia. I used to collect rare newspapers, so if I saw something like an old Russian newspaper like Kolkhoznitsa, I would decide that I wanted the Exhale to look something like that. You know, why Stalin was on the cover, no reason at all. The stuff on the cover very frequently didn't actually lead to a story inside. We would say, you know, exclusive interview with so-and-so, page 3, you'd open up page 3, nothing. Another thing that I've noticed working at straight newspapers in Moscow is that reporters were immensely more interesting when they were sort of standing around with each other bullshitting about what they were going to write about than when they actually wrote their articles. And I was always tremendously interested to listen to reporters when, you know, the people on the news desk or the business desk. But when it came around to reading their actual articles, they were incredibly dry. So we decided we were going to do it the other way, that we were going to write everything that was in the paper in the style that people use when they talk to, reporters use when they talk to each other. So for instance, I knew from experience that American journalists had been writing obituaries for Boris Yeltsin every week since about 1993. And he was constantly drinking himself into a coma and falling ill, and the whole country would have to go on this death watch. And reporters were incredibly frustrated by this whole thing. You know, they would make jokes about it. They would say, oh, I'm writing another Yeltsin is dying story, or hey, you want to get a beer? Nah, dude, I'm on Yeltsin death watch, I can't do that. But then when it came time to write the story, they'd have to write these somber, oh, Russia awaits the, you know, Yeltsin's recovery, you know, will he get better? But we decided to just cut right to the chase and do die already. Our approach to the problem there. One of the things that was unique about our situation is that we were in a real legal no man's land. I think it was probably in the whole history of American journalism, no one's been in the situation that we were in. For one thing, the American authorities couldn't reach us through any legal means, and the Russian authorities didn't read us, which was beautiful. Also, we're probably the only publication in the world whose advertisers did not read the publication. Our advertisers are almost entirely Russian club owners, and as long as the ads were in the correct language, they paid us. They never read what was in the actual magazine. So we had almost complete and total freedom. And which meant we didn't have to worry about getting sued or getting arrested or doing anything like that.